I'm doing good, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Can you handle being interviewed on the Michael Kay show with no Michael Kay?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, of course I can. Don, you and I have a strong relationship since you took me deep in that wiffle ball game, about 2 years ago.
Listen,
so
you don't
I feel like we bonded.
Any idea how much that made my millennium. I don't know if you saw this.
Legitimate home run. Yeah.
I heard about it.
Yeah, Billy's across the street from Yankee Stadium. You could play wiffle ball there.
Right.
And I did go deep. I swung and missed through a few, but to make contact against the great David Cohn, that made my day. But Yankees trying to make some contact here. Now, as a former player, when you hear the owner of your franchise, and you were a player for the Yankees when George Steinbrenner was in charge, so you probably don't bat an eye, but how do the players feel when Hal says they've got to step it up and they know it?
Yeah, I think they probably agree with him at this point. Everything I've seen out of that clubhouse has been pretty accountable in terms of guys putting it on themselves. Teixeira has been quoted as saying, I'm not doing enough. We need to do more. We need to swing the bats better. Brian McCann's been very accountable about some of the questions that's come his way. So I think they probably agree with Hal Steinbrenner at this point, and they understand that they really have limited games left, and they've got to pick it up and try to put together some sort of offensive consistency instead of 1 week on and 1 week off, and that's led to a lot of frustration, I think, in that clubhouse.
David, you've been on a lot of postseason teams in your career, and I'll make it simple. Do these Yankees at 61 and 58, what you've seen so far, do they look like a postseason team?
Well, no. To be honest with you, Ian, no, they don't. But they could be. I think there's a lot of bright spots, certainly with the rotation. And Brandon McCarthy pitching tonight has been such a pickup for them. And, of course, Shane Green as well. I think we all thought that the problem was going to be in the rotation when they lost so many guys to injury. And they really kind of done a great job of getting guys in that pitching rotation and doing very well with them. So I think that's the key is, they have the pitching to keep them into ball games. If the offense can sustain any kind of consistency and get on any kind of a roll, that the pitching certainly matches up, and they're going to give them a chance to win some games. So I wouldn't give up on this Yankee team, but Ian, up to this point, no, that they just haven't been consistent enough.
Well, realistically, it looks like the division may be over. You got to climb over team and then get to Baltimore. 8 games back, that's going to be tough. But that second wild card, they're 4 games back. Detroit and Kansas City have been inconsistent. Of the 2 teams, and even throw Seattle and Toronto in there for that second wild card, which of those 4 teams would concern you the most if you're the Yankees?
Well, I think that when you look at Kansas City right now, they seem to be the hottest team. They seem to be the team that's peaking at the right time. I know the Royals do have some games left with the Yankees, so that's a key point too in terms of being able to play the guys that are ahead of you. That's a key. The Yankees have several games with all of those teams that are ahead of them. They can control their own destiny if they play well against the teams that are ahead of them. And it's not as if they don't have a chance because, some of these teams they're never going to see again the rest of the year. They are going to see a lot of these teams that are ahead of them, so that does give them a chance.
David, if they don't respond offensively, obviously they're not going to get that second wild card. But if they do, if one guy emerges from the group of McCann, Beltran, and Teixeira and carries this team offensively across September, who do you think is the most likely guy to do that?
Well, I think it's probably Carlos Beltran. Beltran obviously has had an injury-riddled season. He really got off to a good start. If you remember back in April and early May, he was swinging the bat very well. And as of late, he's come back on and swung the bat very well. He's a switch hitter in the middle of that lineup. He's a high-average, high-power hitter. I think he's the guy that kind of sets the tone for the Yankees. Teixeira has been in and out all year and had some injury problems, and McCann has started to get it going as of late in his first year as a Yankee. But Beltran's the veteran of all those guys, and he's the guy that's most capable, I think, of really carrying a team. And we've seen what he's done in the past. We've seen what he's done in postseason play, a great postseason career he's had. So I think he's the guy I would look to kind of light a fire in that lineup.
David Cohn down in Tampa getting ready for the Yankees and the Rays, Game 1 of their 3-game set of the weekend. Ken Singleton will be working with him as well here on the Yes Network. Coverage will begin at 6:30. You're a guy that was very close to the union. I'm sure you paid close attention who the next commissioner was going to be. Your thoughts on Rob Manfred getting the job?
Well, I'm surprised that there was a little bit of controversy in terms of the votes. I thought he's a natural fit. actually has done pretty well in working with the Players Association over the last several collective bargaining agreements. He seems to be a deal maker. He seemed to have worked well with Mike Weiner, the late Players Association head at one point. So I think moving forward, working with Tony Clark and some of the other guys at the Players Association, there's a well-established relationship there. I think they understand that you have to make deals, that we can't have what happened 20 years ago in 1994 and a cancellation of the World Series. And that's probably the black mark on Bud Selig's legacy. And certainly that's something we need to do everything we can to avoid in the future. And Rob Manfred, I think, gives us the best chance to do that from the owner's side.
David, there's been a lot of recent talk, obviously, about pace of play and trying to make the game faster for the younger generation of fans. Do you agree with that sentiment? And if so, what steps would you implement to make the game faster?
Well, you know, some games drag on longer than other games. There is a little bit of gamesmanship going on nowadays, and I think one of the main culprits is a lot of the hitters that step out of the box use that tactic to sort of disagree with a call from the home plate umpire. Rather than turn around and argue with an umpire and chance getting thrown out of the game, they take sort of a long stroll around the batter's box and take their time, and that's sort of a body language signal to the umpire that he didn't like that call. And certainly I think batters getting in the box, pitchers getting on the mound, that does more for the pace of play than any rulemaking. I think the players control the pace of the game. Sometimes when there's runners on base, pitchers have to slow down and be more deliberate. Sometimes in a long at bat, hitters need to step out and kind of regroup their thoughts. But by and large, I think if the hitters stay in the box and the pitchers stay on the mound, that will go a long way towards increasing the pace of play and for pitchers to throw strikes, for more crisp baseball to be played, you know, just a better action-packed baseball game when the pace is better.
I want to ask you about Matt Harvey. It doesn't seem like Harvey and the Mets are on the same page. Harvey wanted to pitch this year. He wants to throw hard in his rehab. He did an interview with our radio station while the Mets game was going on, to the point where Collins said he wanted to put his head through the wall. They told him to back off in his rehab. They told him no more interviews during games. Do you like that Matt Harvey seems to have that bulldog mentality to just do what he wants and be the best that he can be? Or do you think that there's a little something going on between him and the Mets that he needs to kind of calm down just a little bit? How would you take what's going on with Matt Harvey right now?
You know, Don, I think it's kind of much ado about nothing. You know, I like Matt Harvey a lot. I think you like the fact that he wants to pitch again this year. It's his arm. It's his pitching elbow. He's the one willing to take on the risk. If the Mets were in a playoff run or a chance to play in postseason, he wanted to be there for them. I admire that. I don't see anything wrong with that. As far as doing an interview during a game, yeah, that's a mistake. Yeah, I mean, is it a big mistake? I think the Mets are overplaying it a little bit. It's a slip. It's something that could easily be diffused. It doesn't need to be made into that big of an issue. Certainly some of the Instagram and some of the Twitter feeds that you see him do, maybe you just give him a little counseling. But I don't see a whole lot there that's creating this big of a controversy. Well, I think it's much ado about nothing.
Well, I think the problem the Mets have, and I'm not speaking for the Mets, but he just has a problem doing what he's told. So is that a problem? Even though you're a phenom and even though you're the future of the organization, shouldn't you still do what you're told? You know,
David, actually, you're as competitive an athlete as I've ever covered in this marketplace, and you brought a certain edge to you to the mound and stubbornness, but I'm wondering, has he crossed the line from just being stubborn and being competitive to being defiant of your employer, and is that a problem?
I don't really see it to that extent. I understand the question. It's a fair question, but I don't really see the extreme defiance that everybody's making this out to be. Do I see a few mistakes here and there? Do I see a young pitcher who, hasn't really established himself yet, regardless of the world of talent that he's shown so far? Maybe he needs to play the rookie role a little bit more. Maybe he needs to get a little more time under his belt. But I don't see this extreme defiance that everybody's talking about. I see a couple of slips. I see a couple of mistakes here and there. I think the Mets could have handled it better on their end as well by diffusing it rather than making it a big splash in the media. So, I just see a young pitcher with a lot of talent. Maybe he's made a couple of mistakes, but I don't see that big a deal out of the whole thing.